I'd like to show you some operators that we haven't really talked about very much in other videos, so I thought I'd do a little video just dedicated to them. So we're going to look at the plus plus operator. And I'll just zoom in a bit there. And the plus plus operator is also known as the increment operator, but depending on how you use it, it's actually sort of two operators in one. So let's do a little demo. Let's have a variable called I. We'll give it the value of 10, and we'll write console.print I++. So before I hit F5, have a guess what value is going to come out. Are we going to see 10, or are we going to see 11, or are we going to see something else? So I'm going to hit F5 now. The value we get is 10. Now if I print I on the next line, we see 10 printed again for the first one, and then we see 11. So when plus plus is used like this after the variable, it's known as a post-increment operator. So the original value is returned to us, and then the value is incremented. So we get the original value of I, which is 10, and then it adds 1 onto I. The other version of this is plus plus I. So let's clear the console. So I'm going to hit F5. What do you think we'll see this time? Will we see 10, 11, or something else? We see 11. And if I print I again afterwards, we still see 11. So this is known as the pre-increment operator. So this increments the original value and then returns it to us. You can use either of these in a for loop, for example, and the result will be exactly the same. But using the pre-increment operator, this one, plus plus I, is marginally more efficient, although you probably won't notice any difference in real-world projects. But if you were using a language like C or C++, then it might be more important in certain circumstances to use the pre-increment operator rather than the post-increment operator. And the reason it's more efficient is with the first one we had, I++. So with this version, the post-increment operator, the system first has to copy the original value of I, so 10, to a bit of temporary memory. Then it adds 1 to the original copy, and it returns to us the temporary value that it's been storing. So in practice, we don't see a change in value at the point we use the operator, we only see it afterwards. The pre-increment operator, on the other hand, this one, is less computationally heavy because all it has to do is add 1 to the original value and return that value to us. There's no temporary storage of the original value. Both of these also have a subtractive version, which are called decrement operators, so they subtract 1 from the value. So if I put minus minus, we get the value 9, and if I put it afterwards, a post-decrement, we're going to see the value 10 again, because it won't decrement it until after we've used it. Most of the time, in your programs, it is not going to matter which one you're using. In certain circumstances, you may find that the order things are happening are important to what you're doing, in which case this may become relevant. But most of the time, don't worry about it. It's just one of those things that I thought you should be aware of. But let's do a little test to benchmark that efficiency difference and see if the difference between the two is detectable. So we're going to create a loop. Oh, let's get rid of this original I variable. We don't need that. And let's get rid of that. There we go. For I equals 0, I is less than, let's just do a big number, do 1,000,000, and then we'll do I++. And we need something for this loop to do, so let's just create a variable called a, and we'll just set a to equals I. So really simple little task. All it's doing is counting up and assigning the value to another variable. And then we're going to benchmark this using the built-in console benchmark tools. So we'll have console.startBenchmark, and then afterwards console.stopBenchmark. So these functions will basically, it'll start a timer here and it will stop a timer there, and then it'll print to the console how long it took to complete the task between these two commands. So really simple little benchmark. So that will be for the post increment operator. And we'll do the same thing, but we'll just change that to the pre-increment operator. So I'll hit F5 and we'll see two numbers appear. Or let's clear the console actually every time we hit F5, so that we only ever see two numbers. Okay, so I'll hit F5, we'll see two numbers appear, one above the other. And the first one will be for the post-increment operator, and the second one will be the time it took for the pre-increment operator. And if what I said is correct and this one is more efficient, we should see the second number be slightly lower than the first number. So there we go, the pre-increment operator is 2 milliseconds faster. Told you it's not going to be a huge difference, but it is detectable. Let's repeat this to make sure it's not just a fluke. So that's more significant, that's 10 milliseconds. Again, about 10 milliseconds. Almost exactly 10 milliseconds there. Okay, so it does seem there's a noticeable difference. It's 10 milliseconds every time. But let's just double check that it's not just the second number that's always going to be lower. So let's swap these over. So for the second one, we'll switch that to the post, and for the first one, we'll make that pre. So now what we should see, if this is true, is the first number should be lower. So let's hit F5. And there's a huge difference there. So there, the post increment is slightly faster. Do a few more. So yeah, it does seem to be fairly consistent that the pre-increment is faster, but not always. Look, that one's slower. Okay, so what I'm concluding from this is it doesn't make a huge difference whichever one you go with. As I say, this is a very contrived example anyway, with just counting up to 1 million. But in your real-world projects, it doesn't make a difference which one you use. You're not going to notice any huge efficiency improvements. But if you ever do switch to a language like C or C++, and you're not just incrementing standard integers, then it may make some difference to you. Okay, well, I don't think you'll have found this one too useful, but hopefully you found it at least somewhat interesting. Let me know if you've got any questions or comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.